Alternate Realities has been gone for over 5 years, but our community lasts forever. And now, in these dark times, the AR signal lights up the night sky, and the old gang is ready to answer the call as we celebrate a year's worth of holidays together. This is the LongAR Halloween. Welcome to the LongAR Halloween, a My Comic Shop history tale. I'm your host, Anthony Desiato, and this month, I'm celebrating Thanksgiving with the wayward son of alternate realities, Nick Robison, aka Robi.
Hey, thanks for having me. How you doing?
It's so good to see you and speak to you. And you know I'm only kidding when I say wayward, because wayward implies like you went astray, and you didn't go. You went away, but not astray. So, I say it more in jest. But I don't consider you wayward necessarily.
No, I mean that's fair. I kind of feel like, had a long detour in Western Australia. I think I kind of touched on that before, but yeah, I mean, would I do it again? Probably not. But it's definitely been weird, and it's been great to come back though. I know I've been back in New York a couple of times, and always been able, when I hang out with you and Bill and Steve and things like that, it's been really fun. And actually, it's kind of it's one of those weird things that I never came to appreciate until coming back and sitting with you guys when we were at Venetian Delight last time, right? And
almost a year ago. It was between Christmas and New Year's, and the four of us, you, me, Odo, and Bill, we got together for pizza. And so just a quick recap. So you played Magic at Alternate Realities for many years. You were part of the gang. You came out to dinner, and you would work at the store a little bit here and there, right? Not like a full-on employee, but you had some time behind the counter for sure.
Yeah. I can't. I worked in like some brief stints, like a little bit when I was in high school. Definitely a lot near the latter part of high school, but I kind of snuck my way in there a couple times when Brandon was still one of the owners.
Brandon Montclair, comic book writer.
I'm pretty sure I remember, because I remember I think I remember him. It was a time where they just bought the employees Chinese from K-Fung's. I think it was. Was it K? No, K-Fung's wasn't. It was Jade Palace or one of those Chinese places nearby. And but every now and then I would kind of work. And then but near the end, towards closer to college, I definitely just hung out more than I worked. But I can't remember what my official tenure was, but definitely more customer than employee.
That's quite all right. And so you were on this podcast once before. We did a New Year's special a couple years ago. Once again, the same group, you, me, Bill, and Steve. And, we kind of, in that episode, we recounted your journey to Australia and then ultimately to Seattle. So, if people haven't listened to that, I really do encourage them to. It was one of my favorite episodes. It was really great having the three of you guys together, and you in particular, because we hadn't seen you in so long. But again, just a quick recap, refresh my memory. What was the year that you left New York for Australia?
It was 2000. It was the end of 2011, I believe, beginning of 2012. I want to say. I was just thinking about this, but I think it was around 2012, 2011, and I was in Australia until 2015. It's
just amazing because we're talking like 9 or 10 years since you've been in New York on a regular basis, right? Yeah. And I was thinking about this. In almost a decade, I've been face to face with you. Even we're doing this virtually, but I'll still count this as face to face. 3 times. When you came a couple years ago and we did that New Year's special. When you came to New York last year, we didn't do a podcast, but that was when we got together for pizza. And now. So 3 face-to-face meetings in almost a decade. It's crazy to me. I mean, obviously we're friends on Facebook and we see each other's photos and stuff, and we'll exchange the occasional message. But it's been very, very minimal contact. So it's one of the reasons why I'm happy to have you on here today and to actually properly catch up.
Yeah, I wish I was kind of in the area, and I was hoping to be there, but because of current circumstances, that's not in the cards, which is a shame because I'm now an uncle.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. And yeah, his name's Jack, and I think he's a little over a month old now. And it's kind of weird. I didn't come over because I was in the States at 2015, and it was a couple years, and I don't think I talked about it much last time, but I was a lot bigger than I am now. And, it was kind of, there was a lot of things I was kind of reeling from, and I was still kind of finding my way and trying to like decide what to do with myself physically, mentally, career-wise and everything. And things were kind of in flux a lot. And so I know this is stupid. This probably sounds stupid, but I didn't really want to see people who knew me when I was in a healthier weight. And I was kind of like really, there's a lot of like kind of some like shame, I guess would be the word. And I was kind of like thinking, oh, well, my friends are going to judge me and things like that. And of course, when I finally kind of manned up and decided to, see you guys and hang out and do the podcast, it was interesting because like none of that was like, it was like, oh, right. No, these are my friends. Like, these are guys who have known me through a lot of stuff, through, my anime fandom to, learning about Green Lantern and, all the starting to getting into comic books, and Magic the Gathering. It's like, no, these are people who are my friends because they know who I am and they accept me regardless. And it was when I came in 2017, it was one of those like, why haven't I should have been doing this the moment I landed in the States. So yeah, I'm hoping when circumstances change, especially now, I'm hoping to be able to come out more and hang out with you guys because I always, I was actually just talking to my girlfriend about it. Like whenever I think about just all the stories and everything, like it's just kind of this very bittersweet kind of feeling of like, man, like, that's home. And, Seattle's great and Seattle's, my new home right now, but like, Scarsdale and alternate realities and like, you guys are kind of my friends and family. So definitely there will be more frequency in which I come and visit and say hi to you guys. But yeah, it's, there was like zero contact for a little while in terms of like coming over to visit because I was in Australia and stuff and everything I just mentioned. But yeah, no, I hope to, come around more often, especially now that I'm an uncle and, gotta make sure that Jack grows up to be a Yankees fan and maybe even a Green Lantern fan one day.
Yeah. I mean, and, speaking on my own behalf, and I think it's fair to say on behalf of the other, guys in the AR crew, I mean, we certainly hope to see you more, of course, when we're able to get together in person. And, I'm sorry that you felt, that way. And I'm glad that once we finally got together, that was, those feelings that you had were kind of able to go away and you saw that you were welcomed and accepted and a beloved member of the group. But, I understand sometimes, you have your own, all of us have our own hangups and there are things that, maybe we think are going to be an issue or, we feel a certain way and project it onto, so many things are wrapped up in that. So, I guess that's, my way of saying like, I understand. And, and I'm glad that, though it's only been a few times and I'm glad that we've been able to see each other, the times that we have. And yeah, I certainly hope that, it's something that can happen more in the future. It's funny because, mentioning your nephew, when we got together for pizza about a year ago, again, it was the four of us. And, this was my perspective on the conversation. There was a moment where you were like, all right, guys, like I got to tell you something, but like, you can't, you got to keep it a secret. You can't tell anyone. And you got like, it was like almost grave. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, what is he going to say? I was fearing the worst. For a second, I thought you were going to say that you were going to become a dad, which, of course that would have been a blessing, not the worst. But I didn't know what it was going to be, but I just felt like you had me on the edge of my seat, and I was like, oh my God, what is he going to say? And then you shared that, that you were going to become an uncle, and I was instantly relieved, and happy for you. So I'm glad that he's here now and that everyone's doing well. But yes, I remember that well when you shared that news with us.
Yeah, that my sister, the way she was going to break the news to me is she bought me a mug that says I'm not just an uncle, I'm a cool uncle, and that was her Christmas gift to me, to kind of be like, surprise. And yeah, no, so but I mean it was because that was December, right? So yeah, it was still very much is still very much that. The funny thing is, by the way, is that the end of that story is that my dad I think spilled the beans before Christmas by accident. He just happened to mention it. But yeah, so I was really excited. Like I was really thrilled as one who, still doesn't really know if he wants to have kids or not. Like I'm glad I get to do all the fun parts of not raising a kid, but kind of being there for this kid and being an uncle, being like Uncle Robi or something. Probably my sister's not going to call me Uncle Robi.
No.
But but yeah, no, it's just being like, yeah. So I was I think I was being grave just because I was trying to be like, you cannot tell anyone.
What was funny to me, and I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but it was like, who would we tell who would even know your sister and that this was happening?
That's fair. You never know, like 7 degrees of separation.
No, I know. And look, in fairness to you, it's like one of us could have, posted on your Facebook page after you left, hey, it was great seeing you, congrats again, you're going to be a great uncle. So no, in fairness, but it was just funny. It was like...
No, that's how I am. Like I've been told recently, and it didn't really click with me last time I was on the show, but I was told recently that I have a very expressive face. Like I don't have.
You have no poker face.
Poker face. Yeah, you said I have a bad poker face, and I thought you guys were just saying oh well, I just. Apparently, it's not as. It's more. Apparently, it's more like. What's the word? Like, apparent than I realized. Once again, my girlfriend was telling me that I just react to everything with my face. I can't possibly not react to something. Even times where I thought I was hiding my reaction. Apparently I wasn't hiding my reaction. So I'm definitely giving up poker for sure. But yeah, it was so I don't know. So I guess my face kind of gets grave because I'm trying to also indicate the seriousness of please don't tell anybody. But yeah, maybe I gave the wrong signal there.
It's quite all right, and I'm glad that it ended up being a very happy thing. And yeah, it was great to see you. I know. So I mentioned this on the show before, but we have a private Facebook group for the Alternate Realities crew. I set it up as the store was closing because I figured, all right, this, as much as we email and text and stuff, this was a place where again, more of a community forum if someone needs to post something, since we don't have the option to just pop into the store and let everybody know. And I know when you were, preparing to come into town last year, you posted that you were coming in and you wanted to see if anyone would be around. And, it ended up being a small group. I guess I was thinking about this, and I don't say this to stir the pot or antagonize anyone or anything like that, but I'm just curious, was there any disappointment that we weren't able to have a larger assembling? No? There are people I definitely would have liked to have seen.
But it's interesting because in my mind, this is just to name a few, just so anyone who's listening, just be like, that son of a bitch. But there are of course a lot of people I would have liked to have seen. But of course, would have liked to have seen Rich, Brian, Doug, I haven't seen in a while. But there are a bunch of people I would have liked to have seen. But to be honest, it was kind of this interesting. I don't know. It felt like this like core group, and like for me, like the people who were like most present in the store. And even though Bill, obviously, moved to New Mexico, right? I hope I'm right about that.
You're right.
So like, even though Bill was in New Mexico, like Bill was a very like foundational part of it for me. And then even when he moved, like he was always present. Like Bill, one thing I've noticed about Bill is that he's like he's very present, and I should take a page from his book. He's is once again one of those people where like you feel like you never left, and like you just start up where you left off. And yeah, so I think it was honestly, it was like when I was hanging out with you guys, I wasn't thinking at all like, oh, I wish it was like more people. I would have liked to have seen a lot of people, but it was more, I was just feeling like it was the prevalent thought in my head was I'm home, and like, I wish I had more time to hang out with my friends. Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of the overall thought. It's funny, I didn't have that thought at all until
I just said it.
Yeah.
And now you feel awful. No, that was not my intention. We've talked about how, the AR group as a whole is not the best at organizing themselves. And, when we talk about like these large, group dinners, especially in the years now that the store has been gone, I would say virtually all of them, again, the large, like 10 plus people dinners have been organized by either Rich Roney, Mike San Gregorio, or myself. It's been one of the three of us for almost all of them. And it's usually via email, because again, I think we all kind of gave up on the Facebook group, unfortunately, but myself included, I guess. And it's always tough to get responses, and to get timely responses and definitive responses. And, and again, I think times where one of the three of us doesn't kind of grab the bull by the horns and send out an email, I think it's, it just doesn't happen, sort of thing. So again, I'm sure, as I remember, I think there were people who, commented on your post, and I think there was an intention, to come, but whether it was scheduling or whatever else. But I'm glad that you were happy with the group that we had. It was certainly nice having like a smaller, more intimate group. And and I'm sure that others, had they been able to, would have come.
Yeah, like I understand like that, everyone's like, that's the thing that's interesting about this group. Like, Sean has his own life, Tom has, like, everyone's like, we had this like focal point in our lives that like we were all together at the same time, and then we all started going our own kind of separate ways, which is a little sad to think about, but also kind of really cool to think about. I was thinking about how like we all have these different walks of lives now. Me and Amazon, you the director of, I hope I get this title right, the director of admissions at Pace Law.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the director of My Comic Shop Country, but yes, also the director of admissions at Pace Law.
Yeah, I mean, like, but yeah, and then and everyone, like, I haven't caught up with everyone else's like kind of like career paths, but like and Bill's still a professor, I imagine, right? At
yeah, sure is.
University, and so like it's just. It kind of, I get it, and it's sad, like, but yeah, it takes a lot. I think it takes a lot of effort. And what you kind of described was like a microcosm of like, of just like, it's when you grow older and you start like, starts like when you start branching out, it seems like, it really is like, it takes real conscious effort to like make the time to see people, and it sneaks up on you how quickly, it just sneaks up on you. Like, it's like, oh my God, I haven't talked to like Brian O'Day, for example. Like, I have not had actually direct contact with him for like over 10 years. Like,
I know I was going to ask you, because as we've established, like the last couple of times that you came into town and you reached out to people, again, it was you, me, Steve, Bill. And so, yeah, I was going to ask you, like a lot of these other guys in the AR group, it's like, how long has it been since you've actually seen them or had that direct contact? In a lot of cases, it probably is about a decade.
Yeah, like, man, it is what it is, and I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for all my experiences. But like, I do actually really regret like going to Australia. Now, once again, who knows where I would have ended up? Maybe I would still be trying to be a lawyer or something. but no offense, it's just not for me.
None taken, believe me. But no, everything that you're saying, man, I identify so much in multiple ways because, you know, we'll have a little comics talk for a second here. I recently launched a Superman podcast called Digging for Kryptonite, and that's been a lot of fun. And it's prompted me to, you know, catch up or reread some Superman stories from the past or catch up on stuff that I missed. And I've just been thinking a little bit more about comics generally. And, you know, I was thinking about Spider-Man. We'll jump over to the Marvel side. The last time I read Spider-Man regularly was the beginning of the Brand New Day era. And in my mind, I was just a few years ago. It was like well over 10 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And it dawned on me because I saw the solicitations. I might be getting the number wrong. I think they're up to like 850, Amazing Spider-Man 850, something like that. And the last anniversary issue I remember was like 500. Now, in fairness, they went 3 times a month for a good period of time. So that's how they covered a lot of issues. But still, it's like the fact that there have now been hundreds of issues of Amazing Spider-Man. And in my mind, it's like, oh, like I'm a couple years behind. So it's crazy. And with people in particular, and that's why I was saying I was reflecting on how long you've been out of New York and how, you know, the shockingly, you know, few number of times that I've actually seen you. So yeah, I mean, it goes really fast. And to your point, and this is something that Odo has said, I know you've heard him say it, and I certainly have, you know, he said this a lot over the years about, you know, just from his own experience, whether it was college friends or people at the law firm where he worked or whatever, you know, whenever you kind of part ways, there's always this intention of like, oh, like we'll keep in touch and this and that. And it doesn't always happen because there really is something to be said for being in the same space, whether it's next to each other in a classroom or an office or a comic shop, whatever it is. Like that regularity and that proximity, it really forges those bonds. And when you don't have it, the bond is still there, but you know, it really, as you said, it really requires effort, you know, and it's not even a matter of like that. I don't think it's even a matter of people don't care, people don't want to get together, but it's that affirmative step that you have to take, and it just doesn't always happen.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't think about the concept of like proximity, like, yeah, with your college friends, you know, for me, like, you know, you see, like, you live in the same dorm rooms or you live very close and you go to the same class, you go to the same classes. And that kind of keeps you together. But then, because I was thinking the same thing about some of my college friends, like I haven't spoken to them in ages, and it's kind of just, yeah, it really is that proximity. That seems to be the linking factor. Like if you spend a lot of time, and I guess that makes sense then with why, like, I have some, you know, close coworker friends now, and like, and then of course, and then what's funny is that, so almost to completely illustrate your point 100%, like, yeah, this coworker Michael, and he and I, every night, almost like clockwork during the work week, we would have like post-work drinks and we'd talk about whatever, work, life, what have you. And aside from a couple times, and honestly, they were only because we were going to be in the same meeting together, like through our internal communicate, like through Chime, which is essentially our internal messaging system. Like, yeah, I haven't talked to him about at all outside of work context, and very infrequently because he's moved on to another team now and with an Amazon. Holy moly. Like, yeah, 4 months, 5 months, like right when, you know, things happened. So yeah, that, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, which is when you don't have something that's linking you together in this like close proximity, whether it's work or whatever, you just naturally drift apart. And that's really interesting.
And I think what I see, so I guess it's kind of sad to think of it that way, but I think what happens is, because I certainly have this with a few buddies from high school in particular, who they were my best friends in high school, and 3 of them now live on the West Coast. The other one lived elsewhere. Now he's actually back in New York, and I've seen him, but only a couple of times. But again, most of them moved away, and we see each other, I mean, maybe once a year, maybe. When we do, we pick up right where we left off, and we fall right back into it. And I think when you have a true friendship and a true bond, you know, you have that, and there's something very comforting about that. But I think what often happens is with that type of dynamic, you're reminiscing in a lot of instances, and you're catching up. I don't know. And again, I'm sure people have experiences that are counter to this, but I'm just saying from what I've experienced, in that type of situation, or with some people from AR who, I don't have the regular contact with, when you get together, you reminisce and you catch up. I don't know that you're always necessarily making those new memories. I think where those new memories are forged, the events that you're then going to catch up about in the future, those happen when you have like that regularity and that, the interaction on a regular basis. That's kind of what I've come to.
That's a very interesting thought. I definitely see that. I definitely so I was thinking about, I was trying to think about other people I had, like when you said best friends in high school, like Obi, aka or Adam, aka Obi. Yeah, like we haven't, once again, same deal. We haven't talked, but then like when I did see him last, which was, I think it was in late June when I was there for like a weekend. Yeah, like we picked up where we left off, and and it was like, I'm thinking about it, like once again, we only hung out like once, I think, or twice, but it was just kind of like catching up. It was just like, oh, what's going on with so-and-so? Oh, what's happening with so-and-so? And it's like, oh, and like, and then like, remembering the odd time this happened and you're right. Like,
and that's really not to say that, and I don't want to paint this as like, oh, like it's terrible if that's all you're doing. Like not at all. And there's something comforting about that. And, it can be wonderful to have those types of experiences. But I think the thing that can be kind of hard is, kind of going back to my Spider-Man example, like in my head, right, I'm just a couple years behind on Spider-Man, but really it's been more than a decade. And with some of these relationships, I think sometimes you kind of cross over into that type of dynamic where you're more just kind of catching up as opposed to like really having new adventures together. And sometimes it's hard to really recognize that you've crossed, I hate to say cross over, it sounds like death, like, but that you've kind of had that transition point, because it's again, as much as it's easy to say like, okay, when the store closed, like that was the mark, but I don't think it always is as neat and clean as that. I think it's something that really happens very gradually.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm trying to think, yeah, because I agree. It's like there's like there doesn't have to be a judgment on it. There doesn't have to be a this is good or this is bad. I think if I had to try to psychoanalyze it a little bit, totally not do what I like, just like a lay psychoanalyst, like probably if I had to guess, like what I know I draw a comfort from when we reminisce about it, it's just like it first of all, it harkens back to a simpler time. So it's like the nostalgia factor, which is what people play on all the time. That's why disco seems to come back every fall. But like it plays, people like being reminded of a simpler time, and people like being reminded, I think it may be because when you were younger, you had a security blanket that, generally on the whole, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, which is, I had my parent, like, well, I still, knock on wood and everything, but like, it was high school and I had like, the only thing I was worrying about was my grades and what my report card was going to be, and the new Magic the Gathering set that was coming out, and like what's the meta for, the most competitive set, and like, what girl I had a crush on. And now I think as like it's funny because I had just thought about this yesterday, which is, when does one grow up? What marks when you're more mature? Like what marks you being an adult? When does that happen? And I think I've kind of pinpointed it on when you have to do things that like normally, for once again, normally being my life experience, normally your parents would take care of for you. Whether it's like having a place to live, expenses, all that. I think some people grow up faster than others, because some people maybe never grow up. But like, I think you grow up when you have life experiences that like where you don't have a security blanket and you have to make your own security blanket. And so what's interesting is I think generally people like reminiscing because they kind of go back in time and go back to the go back into a time where they didn't have to worry about taxes. They didn't have to worry about their job. They didn't have to worry about, if they have a kid, they didn't have to worry about taking care of a kid. In all those responsibilities where, someone else was doing it for you. So you could only focus on, the small stuff, quote unquote. And so, yeah, I mean, and I don't think that's bad, because that's part of, like, those times also forged who we are as people. Like, for example, there are characteristics of me that I attribute to, funny enough, some of the most not most random, but like people in the store, who came to the store all the time. Like John Namoli, for example, was someone who I basically learned how to, like, have like a very kind of surface level conversation with someone. Like if I'm at the counter, they say, hi, how are you? And I say, I'm fine. How are you? And like have a small, very surface level, but like somewhat, engaging and polite conversation. I actually learned that from John. So I think maybe it also just harkens back to like being with people who kind of forged you. You're like, that's when you're the most malleable, and that's when you kind of develop who you are as a person. And luckily for me, I think the store there, because there's so many different characters and so many different walks of life and points of view, and people, but of course some more influential than others. I think I was, I had a very strong kind of foundation in that regards. But yeah, and I kind of went on a tangent there. But essentially, I just think that like it reminds us of a time where we were still learning about ourselves, becoming ourselves, and kind of discovering who we are with like people who are kind of like-minded individuals, whether it's because we both liked Green Lantern or because we both like Magic the Gathering or, Big Trouble in Little China. It kind of harkens back to those times where we forged who we are as people, which now we kind of move on and take those personality traits and kind of go into the world and in our various lives now. So I think that's maybe why we do it. But then again, I could just be completely full of it.
No. It was really interesting. And, you hit on a couple of points that, definitely resonate with me. And it builds on the conversation I had with Bill Mayo for part 1 of the LongAR Halloween, where, he's always talked about how the store is one of the best times of his life, which is a sentiment that I think many of us share. I think he feels it especially strongly. But, like what we talked about is it goes beyond just being, hey, like that was a fun place to hang out and I liked comics and I could talk about comics with people. Finally got that sentence out. Like it goes beyond that. And I think, you've hit on a couple of the things that are really going on. And this, again, building off of what I talked about with Bill, where, it really does represent that period of freedom and maybe the last period of freedom, or a lack of responsibility, should I say, for many of us. Like, I think a lot about the, like one of the summers in particular, during college when I worked at the store, and it stands out because that was a summer, I know this might sound silly, but that was a summer that I binged Buffy and Angel for the first time. I had never seen either show before. And that summer I watched 7 seasons of Buffy.
Oh my gosh.
And 5 seasons of Angel. And I worked at the comic shop and I worked out, and that was it. Like that was that summer, that was really all I had to do. I had not a care in the world. I was, just doing my thing, working at the store. I was flush with cash, working, binging these shows. And it's like, that's not, anywhere close to like what my reality is now. And I couldn't be happier with where I am now. So it's not even a matter of like, oh, that was better, or I wish I could go back to it. But again, I do think there's something, that nostalgia, like you said, that kind of, pulls you back to that period. And then the other thing too, that you brought up that I think really is a fascinating piece of this is, these experiences that, really shaped us, and we can pinpoint that. Like we can look to certain people or encounters that we had at the store and kind of say like, well, that formed the foundation in part of who I am now. Like that gave me some of the tools that I use now. I mean, we always talk about Rich Roney, and it's like, if you didn't know how to shake someone's hand firmly and look them in the eye when you greet them, you definitely did after Rich. And so I think that's another big part of it too.
That's a yep. I should have. How dare I forget that? Like, or attribute like that is honestly. I'm 100%. I'm not just saying it. Because of the show or anything. Like, Rich is the reason why I have a pretty decent handshake. I think. And like, yeah. I mean, and Rich also taught me. He obviously didn't consciously teach me, but like he taught me just like through me observing him how to act engaged when you don't really care. But like how to be engaged, like, but not like you don't really care. It's like you care about the person you're talking to. So you want to care about what they say, but like, and so it's like, and especially if you have no clue what they're talking about, but you want to try to be there and like engaging with them, not like because you don't want to talk to them, but like just, they're talking about something that they have no idea about. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I just remember once, I forget what it was. Maybe it was magic or something. But I remember talking to Rich and we were at like Mickey Spillane's. And I remember Rich like nodding his head, looking aside, kind of reacting like the way he would react if he like knew what I was talking about. But mid sentence, I suddenly realized he doesn't have a fucking excuse me. He doesn't have a clue he doesn't have a fucking clue what I'm talking about. Like, and it hit me. But he's legitimately looking like, and maybe he was trying to like understand it, but like, so Rich taught me like a firm handshake and how to try to be engaged and like show the person, not necessarily that like their subject matter and you're interested, but that you're interested in what they're talking about because you are friends with them. So my girlfriend and I, and hopefully she stays my girlfriend after this, but I'm going to, we're going to one day spend some time and watch the My Comic Book Shop documentary together. And I kind of resolved this before I met her or anything, but like, which is like anybody who is like, I'm starting to feel like is, more of a sure thing. Not like, oh, you need to know this like it's a bad thing. Not like, not with a tone that you misunderstood, like, hey, don't tell anyone, but I'm not going to be an uncle. But more like, hey, this was a really important, like, this is where it's coming from, which is this is a really important part of my life. And this shaped me for who I am today. And it's no longer around. But luckily we had, a close friend have the foresight to document this, kind of almost miracle of a store coming together and like community. Everything just like, so this is a very important part of who I am. And I like you to know like who I am as a person. So, we're going to eventually watch that. Probably in like the next, hopefully month or so, but like, definitely before, if once things calm down, in current events, like if I come out with her and have her meet you guys, definitely before then, as a good primer of like, hey, here are like my close friends and here's what they're like. But really, even if they were never to meet you, it would be more of a this store shaped me like to my core of who I am, and I just want to make like I would like to kind of share this side of you because obviously you didn't experience this and it was years ago, but this shaped me as a person, so I would like to share this with you. So yeah, by the way, thank you for documenting that because thank gosh we have that, because of course memories are great, but having that documentary really is something super special that I still have right behind me actually. Right now. So thank you for doing that, by the way.
Well, you're welcome. I appreciate that a lot. And it was my pleasure and privilege to do that. And I love that it reminds me of the Star Wars test and How I Met Your Mother that, that Stella had to pass for Ted. It's the alternate realities test. Let's take a quick commercial break. And then I might actually have a comic book question for you. So, so we'll be right back. Submissions are now open for the March season of the Brightside Tavern Film Festival in Jersey City, New Jersey. Visit filmfreeway.com to submit your film now. Also, be sure to listen to the podcasts hosted by the festival's organizer, CJ Cullen. You can find the official Hang On to Your Shorts podcast, as well as the Cullen on Film podcast, via a shared universe network. The Hive Comics and Games is an oasis of nerd fun and events in the heart of Odessa, Texas. Whether it's comic book superhero stories or role-playing in a dungeon, the Hive is where to be. Come tap your mana and face off against the top Magic the Gathering players in West Texas. Hive carries a majority of new comic titles each Wednesday and has all of your favorite titles in their back issue section. Follow them on Facebook at The Hive Comics and on Instagram at The Hive Comic Shop. Hey, speaking of documentaries, did you ever watch My Comic Shop Country? No.
Not
you
yet.
son of a bitch.
I know.
It's like I knew you didn't watch. Listen, you were very supportive with the Kickstarter. I appreciate it. I love you. You know it's okay. I know you'll get to it, but why?
I feel like I wanted to watch it with someone at I don't know, not like it just I haven't been able to watch it with anybody, and I think I just wanted kind of a setting to watch, experience it with somebody. That's probably it. Honestly, there's been so many different things going. I'm gonna use the lame excuse and say I've really been really busy with work too. But I haven't been doing half of Final Fantasy VII Remake came out, which is a game I've been waiting for years upon years. And I haven't even I played halfway through it so far, and I haven't gotten around to it in over a month and a half.
All right.
And that's just that's a microcosm of my life right now, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I will. What I'll do is actually, speaking of, you know what we're gonna do? Sorry, Vanessa, but yeah, no, there we go. I said I haven't had someone to watch it with. That has changed. There we go. I'll do that. So
all right, yes, they and. I think listeners who have watched both movies will agree with me that My Comic Shop Documentary and My Comic Shop Country pair well together. And while the latter is not a direct sequel, obviously it's designed to be watched cold by anyone. If you watch them together, I think you get a really interesting story. And Bill Mayo was on the LongAR Halloween Part 1 talking about how the ending made him cry. So just prepare yourself. Ooh. Just prepare yourself. I don't want to set expectations too high, but I've heard a number of people have expressed to me that they got emotional during the movie.
That's rough because I'm probably 100% going to get emotional because the moment I start reminiscing at all about the store, I always get emotional. So, oh boy. That's going to be rough. I was going to ask you, I think we've covered it, but one of the things that I was kind of kicking around in my head was, again, just thinking of the timing of everything. So it's crazy to think it's been 10 years, almost exactly 10 years since I interviewed you for My Comic Shop Documentary. It's been, almost 10 years since you left New York. It's been 5 years since the store closed. I was going to ask you, what sort of space does alternate realities occupy in the mythology of Nick Robison? How large does it loom? But I think we have covered that. But I guess specifically, because you've mentioned your girlfriend, and I know this is a relatively new relationship. When it first comes up, and I guess it's when you first bring it up, I don't know how or where else, she would discover it. That would be alarming if she.
But I guess how do you describe it? Especially in the context of a new relationship. I mean, how do you describe the store?
The way I describe some people in the store. So we actually were once again. I told her that I was going to be doing this yesterday. We went out to when we went out to dinner. I actually played a little bit of the first podcast I was on. And so I'm actually trying to recall how I said it. I think the first thing I said was that it was a place that the first thing I said to her was a place where I worked at a little bit, but mostly hung out in. And then the people, when I started describing the people there, I called them close friends that were basically family to me. And, I talk about Steve, you, Bill. I always, whenever it's someone new who's learning about my life, I always bring up the story with Bill. and I actually talked about it, I think on last time I was on the podcast,
right?
When you called me,
yeah, gave you some advice at a key moment. Yep.
Yeah, and then exactly. Which still, once again, like is like even more so now. I'm still, if it weren't for that phone call, I don't know where I would be right now in terms of my career path. But so I mentioned it very close, basically my family, my non-blood, blood related family, and yeah, kind of. I don't talk about too many stories just yet, because it could be like a fire hydrant, drinking from a fire hydrant. If I were to talk about all the stories that I have, but I do, like, I kind of always, whenever I mention it and think about it and when I was talking to her about it, once again, like that kind of bittersweet sentiment kept popping up, where it's just like, man, I miss it. And sometimes I wish sometimes I wish I could have done things differently, and like been around more, and all that. But the only thing you can do at that point is move forward. And once again, like I've kind of resolved to be more, like come over more often, be more present. And so I kind of mentioned it like a place where, it kind of, I don't know how I said it exactly to her, but the sentiment was like that it made me who I am today. And it was like a very special place. That's kind of how I've talked about it with her, or anybody really.
No, that's really nice. And I know it's funny because it's like, unless someone has a similar place like that, it can be hard to encapsulate, because, the starting point is, okay, it's a store. So it's like a place of retail. It's like, but like I was friendly with the people there, and it's like, oh, okay. And it's like, but no, you don't understand. Like, it wasn't just that we, said hello and goodbye. Like we hung out. Like it, again, like Rich Roney was the best man at my wedding. And then with Rich, you have the added layer, and with Steve as well, of like the generational divide too, So it's like, well, I'm hanging out with people who like are the same age as my father.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I was saying to myself, like, man, what was my dad thinking during this whole period? Like, hey, like, I'm going to go play Magic the Gathering, and I'm going to go to this random like place in either New Jersey or New York City with like Haymont, and Haymont's going to like pick me up, and like this guy, you have no idea who he is, No one knows who Haymon is. Like no one like knows truly who Haymon is or how old he is.
It's true. And it's like, especially now as a father myself, it's like when Milo's 14, 15, if there's some place that he goes, it's like, yeah, there's some 40 or 50-year-old guy and we're going to go out to dinner. I think we'd be having a conversation. I mean, I think like certainly in my instance, and this was probably similar with, with you and your parents, like, my mom in particular, like, she originally brought me to the store. She came in, like she met Steve, she knew Steve. So there was that. It wasn't like these were just people they only knew by name. There was at least this sense of like, okay, like we've met them, and they had a good sense, and they knew it was a group. I mean, maybe if it had been like a one-on-one thing, that might have been I don't know. But, I always look back at that, and we joke about it, but, going back to what you were saying about how these things were so formative, it's like, I think it was so beneficial for us to, have these friendships with, like you said, people from all walks of life and different generations. I think it gives you a different perspective. It allows you to relate to people in a different way. I don't know if this is anything I've ever like thought of specifically, but I don't know, like whether it was Steve or Rich or whoever, but like dealing with, people who, did have a few decades on us. It's like when the time came that we had a quote unquote real job. I mean, I have to think that it helped in that sense that we, knew how to kind of conduct ourselves, even though, we were dealing with them in a very different situation, but still. But I promised a comics question. So in my comic shop documentary, I think you have a sound bite at the beginning of the movie. You talk about how you got into comics, kind of everyone goes through and they say what their first comic was. And for you, it was Green Lantern Rebirth, right?
Yeah.
Not the 2016 Rebirth, but the return of Hal Jordan in the mid 2000s.
Wait,
you didn't know there was another
Rebirth? Oh my god.
Well, I guess that answers my question about whether or not you've kept up with comics. But yes, are you familiar with the New 52? My goodness. So you've really not been... Okay, that's perfectly fine. Anyway, DC had a whole publishing initiative called Rebirth. So basically every title that they were publishing had a Rebirth storyline in any event. But for you, it was the return of Hal Jordan. And this is what's interesting to me. So, I mean, our experiences kind of mirror each other because I was, working at the store. I had all those Magic cards on the wall behind me. Never knew a thing about Magic, was so invested in comics. And then for you, it's the flip where, you were at the store primarily playing Magic and, it took a while. I mean, before, you really got into comics. But it's funny. I was thinking like, now that with the benefit of hindsight and maturity, it's like as an employee, I should have taken it upon myself to maybe learn something about Magic. But I would say this, 9 times out of 10, the people coming in for Magic knew what they wanted. So I didn't really need to know much more than like what the newest pack was.
Right. But
occasionally they would have questions. And again, it was a rare instance. And I think on most of those instances, either you were there or Steve was there or someone was there who could answer that. But, again, in retrospect, it's like I should have educated myself. But so it took you a while to come to comics.
I felt a little bad because because like unlike Magic, where once again like it's a comic book shop mostly, and like they do Friday Night Magic, and that's and they sell Magic cards, but like once again they're most like Alternate Realities was mostly a comic book shop. Like I felt bad because when I would ring someone up and they just assumed I had this like encyclopedic knowledge of everything. And it's like the complete opposite was the case.
That's where the Rich Roney training had to come in handy, where you nod, and you look really intently at them, and you shake their hand.
Oh, I got really good at like. I wouldn't say really good, but I got decent at being like, I don't know, non-answer answers, pretty much because like I didn't want to lie. I don't know what I did. I probably lied. I was still in high school, so I probably lied a little bit. But like, I just remember like not wanting to be like, I don't know anything, but at the same time being like, oh yeah, I heard that one's good. I heard this issue was good. And every now and then, like I would know that the issue was good because like someone would be talking about it at Mickey Spillane's or wherever. So I could actually sometimes say, oh yeah, no, that one's like, oh yeah, that issue of Red Hulk is this, like every now and then. But I felt really bad. And I remember I was going to Italy with my family, and I just wanted to kind of like read a lot. So I basically said, hey, I think I want to get into comics now. Can you guys just give me a bunch of stuff? And I remember I was recommended Frank Miller's Daredevil, Batman Year One, Superman Red Sun. That was really amazing. Year One was great too, by the way, but like Red Sun, I recommend to all non-comic book readers. Red Sun blew me away. And then X-Men Apocalypse something. I don't know. I didn't really get into it that much. But yeah, basically I got like a Neil Gaiman Sandman as well. That first graphic novel. And so like that was like my main reading that I did. And then yes, from there certain things kind of stayed on and certain things didn't stick. But yeah, I remember that was like when because I had started already reading, I think that's when I had started reading Green Lantern already. When did Rebirth come out? Do you remember?
I don't have the exact year, but it was like mid 2000s.
Yeah, because I remember going to Italy. Yeah, I think it was like 2004, maybe.
It was like definitely around around that time. I'm glad that story worked for you because it was so steeped in continuity. I mean, there was a lot that Jeff Johns had to sort out with respect to Hal Jordan and the path he had been on over the previous decades worth of comics. But the fact that, and to his credit, I mean, the fact that it was still accessible enough that, a newbie, so, as it were, that you were able to get into it. But you don't follow anymore, basically, is what we've established.
No, I was looking and I have my 3 giant, like still sealed in the shrink wrap. Unfortunately, like Jeff Johns, like the Jeff Johns, collection essentially. Some of it I already had, but I wanted it again, and then some of it I haven't like finished. Darkest Night, for example, that's kind of where I stopped, and so I've always like kind of resolved myself to eventually read like Darkest Night.
The Blackest Night and then Brightest Day. Yep, I got you. No, I'm with you.
That's how bad it is. That's how far gone I am.
You know what? Before I forget, with Magic, did you ever play with Chris Wilcock at AR?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I remember Chris and Andre. Yeah. What's going on with Chris?
No. Well, see now, if you watch the documentary and you listen to the podcast, Chris has become a great friend. I've had him on the show a bunch of times. We've had wonderful chats, and he's in the documentary, the new one as well. So yeah, no, I've gotten to know him pretty well through that, and he talks very fondly about, his time playing Magic at AR. And, he has Undiscovered Realm now, his own gaming store, and they do a ton with Pops as well. And, I was thinking about this, as far as Magic. And again, you delved far more into comics than I ever did with Magic. And, in listening to Chris talk about it, he speaks about how, he was able to forge these friendships and find connection and community through playing Magic. And it makes so much sense because, like with, bonding with fellow comics fans, obviously you're all in the same space and conversations can spring up, but it's still like within the realm of a transaction. Whereas with the Magic, it's like you're there playing a game and it could be hours that you're sitting across from someone. And as much as you're playing, it's like, obviously you're talking about other stuff too. So I feel like it's so conducive to forming those friendships.
Yeah, it's interesting because, once again, like about a year ago, about a year and a couple months ago now, I tried getting into Magic again because I kind of wanted to kind of start, having that fun again and kind of trying again at like in Seattle, forging similar experiences. First of all, yeah, Seattle and New York are different, definitely. It's a little weird. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm also older. And that was the weirdest thing for me, by the way, which is so I went to the place I frequented to do my Friday Night Magic kind of thing. It's called Phoenix Comic Book Shop. And,
out in Seattle, where you are now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different Phoenix from the one in New York.
Right. Because I was going to ask if you've explored, comics or gaming shops in your area. Yeah.
And the comic book shop, so the really cool thing with the owner there, whose name is also Nick, actually, funny enough. Really cool guy. And actually very similar, like the owner of that store, they're doing actually really well. They were doing really well, and I hope they still are. I haven't really caught up yet. But they expanded recently, and they're actually a bigger store now. And they're kind of, they had, originally they were more of a alternate realities like style, a little like, kind of like, that, alternate reality style, how it.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
So, but like I think I'm trying to use euphemisms here. You know what I mean? But then
it's fine. I mean, I think we've been pretty blunt about what alternate realities, was like.
But they kind of had that going on, and now they're first of all, they doubled in size, and now they're bigger and more kind of more order to things. But what's cool is the spirit of that store and the owner, and I think it is driven by the owner, is kind of very similar. Willing to talk to you about, some comics that, he's in, like he's reading what he recommend. And he's actually and he's also knowledgeable about Magic, which is kind of cool too. So I talked to him about some stuff, but like, a little bit, not like crazy in depth, but very friendly guy, incredibly friendly, kind of very similar like atmosphere, very welcoming. And yeah, so it was weird though, now being, being 32 at the time and, going there and being like, so this is how Jay Mangold felt. Interesting.
Yeah, you're now the guy
that that guy
that like our parents were worried about. You're now the guy.
Well, look, I wasn't offering to drive. I am. Look, I'm like thank God for Jay and Haymont and everyone and Brian and everyone. But like, once again, thank God for them. Like, this is not what I'm. Obviously, I'm not saying this is what I thought about them at all. But yeah, like I'm not offering. I'm not gonna hell no. I don't know how they put up with me in the first place. But like, cause I've seen those kids now. I'm like, oh man, really? That was me? Like, I was that kid? Like that insufferable kid who, said a lot of weird shit. So yeah, it's been weird now being like kind of like that person. And what was weird, I don't know how to think about this yet. Maybe I'm just too judgmental, but like I can't like see myself like interacting, be like, yeah, no, let me help this kid. Like I'll help this kid out by like being nice to him, and like if I'm playing him, if he breaks the rules, whatever, like I'll, he unintentionally did it and he's a little nervous. I remember how I felt when I first played someone who was like 30. But like aside from that, like I'm not gonna like, I don't know. Either there's two ways to look at it. And I don't know, maybe I was just, I don't know, cool kid. Who knows? But it was just kind of weird though, because now it's like the shoe's on the other foot. And now I'm like, so I was just wondering like this whole time I was like, because like I have my own experience of Magic. And I'm just wondering now, like, yeah, like it's just, once again, it's a bit, I don't know if melancholy is the word, but it's just this weird feeling of like, yeah, no, now you're an adult now. You have to, I don't know. Once again, I long to reminisce. I long to go back home and hang out with you guys.
Yeah, no, but like,
and harken back that time.
But as far as, because this is something that I've sort of wrestled with. I guess my relationship with comics, because that period of time where I had my pull list and I was excited for new comics coming out every week, and I would read them in my car because I was so excited. I haven't had that really in years now, and that's why I do the Superman show, and that's why I do book club podcasts and stuff like that, because it forces me or motivates me to put a better spin on it. It motivates me to read where otherwise, I might not have the interest. And there could be any number of reasons why. I mean, definitely the store being gone and maybe, my taste changing, maybe comics just aren't as good now. I don't know. It could be any of those things. But now that you've had this experience of getting back into Magic, like, are you having fun? Is it the same type of fun that you used to have? Is it really something different?
That's interesting. It's different goals, that's for sure. And I care less about, I'm less competitive. I'm more, it's interesting. I think back when I was a kid, when I was playing, I was really focused on like, gotta have the best deck, gotta collect. I was really like into like trying to be as competitive and kind of winning as much as possible. Now I almost couldn't, you know what? Now, like before when I was a kid, I was hanging out with Haymont and I was like, when Haymont loses, he's still happy and doesn't care. And I never got that. I was like, how could he not care so much? And then it's like, now I just realized I get it. Cause I could go 0-3 in Friday Night Magic and be like, well, that's what happens. You know what? I got to play and have fun, got to talk to people and like, forget about, other responsibilities for a bit. So yeah, I think my take now is I did have like a goal where I collected a player set of every card of this set that came out, and I succeeded. So I also set goals, which also I think I realized Haymont probably did for himself as well, thinking about what he was doing. So yeah, it's different in so much as like when I was a kid, I cared about the results and I cared about winning, and I was like that was like how I gauged my happiness with it back then. And now it's more of a, just experiencing the event and conversing with people and playing the game at all and just having like human interaction outside of, work, is how I enjoy it. And yeah, so that's the difference, I guess, which is interesting to think about now.
No, I dig that. And it's like, there's something else that you want to get out of it. And that makes perfect sense to me. And I don't know, maybe I can draw some parallels to my experience with comics. I keep turning because I'm looking at my bookshelf of stuff behind me. But I don't know. Maybe it is the entertainment that I derive from reading a comic. Maybe that's really not enough Whereas in the past it was, but even in the past, I would enjoy the books, but then I would talk about them, to the people at the store. So there was always that social aspect. But yeah, maybe at this point now, like just the enjoyment of the reading is not always enough. And that's why I like the podcast, because then it's a way that I can work with the material. I can analyze it. I can have this type of discussion. I can, create this content that, hopefully is being consumed and enjoyed by other people. So no, I mean, I definitely get that idea of like, it kind of shifts as far as what you want to get out of it. And so like for me, the idea of like, oh, I'm going to get a stack of comics and I'm going to, close my door and just read for an hour and it'll be fun. Like, I don't know, that doesn't really move me so much, but the idea of like, hey, I'm going to take this run that I really loved as a kid and I'm going to look at it through adult eyes and I'm going to talk to someone and we're going to have a really great conversation about it. And then that's going to be out there and people are going to be able to listen to it. Like that lights my fire more.
Yeah, I think the parallel is the human experience, like the human interaction part. Like, it's not just like, oh, let me put my childhood lens to the test. Like, how did I remember it back then to now, which is always interesting. I've been doing that with movies recently a little bit. But it's more of like, let me see if my experience is shared similarly with other people.
Yeah.
And you kind of get like, not validation, not like that you're seeking that, but like it's always kind of lights a fire when you find someone who shares the same kind of experiences as you and even has maybe the same like childhood experiences. You go, oh yeah, you experienced that too, or oh yeah, you remember that too. I always get really excited when someone gets one of my like obscure Big Trouble Little China references at work. I actually did once say to like someone was like, how did you figure that out? And I literally chimed in. I said, it wasn't easy. And so, I mean, that's one of the more obvious, like, kind of mundane ones, but yeah, like, I think that's because I do that with video games actually. And I stream on Twitch a little bit. I used to stream a lot more like a year ago. I used to do like almost every day for 2 hours. But what I used to do, so this is really, really funny. What I used to do, I would play old school, like PlayStation 1, sometimes PlayStation 2, like JRPG video games, and I would stream it. And the whole premise of what I was doing was, these are games I enjoyed immensely as a child. Now I'm going to play them again, stream my playing them and kind of like relive my childhood and see if the video game holds up today to when I enjoyed it as a kid. That's literally what I did like last year a lot. I did like, 115 days in a row, 2 hours a day. And like put myself out there. And then what was cool was, what I enjoyed the most is I wasn't just recording videos, I was streaming it live. So people would come in, chat, talk about their experiences with the game or what they loved about it. And like, I would converse with them in real time and talking about it. Like, so yeah, that's really interesting that you did that with comic books. And like, I did that with video games.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I didn't really know exactly where this conversation would go. Like I had a couple of things, most of which I didn't even get to, because I think we ended up having a far more interesting conversation, and I've enjoyed it immensely. I think we explored some very interesting ideas. I don't know if it's what listeners want to hear. I hope so. I hope that people like this. It's like, but you know what? Honestly, like this is what I wanted to do this year on the podcast. And at this point, talking about what lights our fire and what we're interested in and engaged by, this is more the type of conversation that I'm interested in having now, as compared to, talking about the latest shenanigans with DC Comics and how they're distributing their comics, and not to diminish that, but, as far as what I really want to explore, this is really it. So it's been fascinating. The one thing though that I thought this would be a huge part of the episode, and I have to at least touch on it, especially because this is our Thanksgiving episode. The reason I selected you for the Thanksgiving episode was because of food. My God, man. I know, maybe if you don't mind, maybe I'll post a few of your dishes on the My Comic Shop History Facebook page so people can see what I'm talking about. You got something right there.
Yeah, I've just made some bacon fried rice before.
The chef, so the chef that you have become And, I think we talked about this when you were on the podcast a couple of years ago, but remember there was a barbecue you invited a bunch of us over for, back when your parents were still in Scarsdale. And so this was years ago. And, you barbecued for us and it was fantastic and delicious. But I don't know, I mean, you've gone to a whole other level here, and I see what you post, and let me lay this out, and then I want to turn it over to you to share with us. But, I love seeing it for a number of reasons, mostly because, and I know at the beginning of this, you alluded to, some of the issues that you've had with weight and the physical transformations, that you've undergone. And I know that, the way you're eating now, the way you're preparing your food is a big part of how you've been able to achieve what you have. And you look fantastic, and you've accomplished so much. And so, when I see you posting that, it's not just that I'm like, oh, that looks delicious. It's like, I know part of what's behind that, and I love it. So that's one of the reasons I love it. It's just impressive on its own. I mean, whether you're a foodie or not, it's like seeing some of this stuff is just, it's mouthwatering. And then the final piece of it is, I am so deficient in that area. And, I don't say that with any pride. It's funny because like around the house, I clean, right? So I take out the trash and I load and unload the dishwasher, and I contribute in that way, but I don't cook. It's like I can make eggs and I make sandwiches and stuff like that. And but it's like, I don't cook. And, maybe kind of like we were talking about with magic, it's like, I should, take it upon myself to learn. And it's crazy because it's like my dad is a wonderful cook and he loves to cook. My mom doesn't like to cook, but she always did, growing up. My wife is a wonderful cook and she does it all the time. And so it's like I have people I could learn from. I have great examples around me. And maybe that's part of the reason why I didn't do it, is because other people were. I don't know. The point is, it's something that I don't have the skill set. I just don't do it. And so when I see what you've accomplished in the kitchen, it's amazing. Can you just describe a few of the dishes that
Sure.
you make?
Yeah. So my signature dish that I make is, and that I've posted a lot of different iterations of, which is the dry aged boneless ribeye steak. It's a reverse sear method where you put it in the oven for about 45 minutes, depending on the thickness of the cut, of course. But you put it in the oven at 275 degrees Fahrenheit for about 45 minutes. By the way, this isn't my own an original recipe. Shout out to Binging with Babish for showing me this tutorial. But you basically cook it in the oven on like super slow 275 Fahrenheit for 45 minutes, which that does most of the work, honestly. And then you, with some butter, thyme or rosemary or both, and garlic cloves, you get iron skillet really hot, really hot, and then you essentially sear it on each side for about a minute to 90 seconds each, once again depending on the cut, and then while you do that, you get the butter, the thyme, and the garlic and the rosemary also on the other side of the skillet, and have it melt and infuse together. And then as you're searing the sides of the steak, you're basting the melted butter on top of the steak as well. And so that's kind of my go-to. And Vanessa really love that one. But that was the first one I kind of learned how to make because it's kind of foolproof. So I would recommend that, by the way, because all the work's done in the oven, and then the showy part for like 2 to 3 minutes is like the sear, and that's just easy. And so I recommend that that was my starter dish that I did when I was first losing weight.
Yeah. When did you actually start cooking like this?
It was really when I first decided to do like keto and do, and to, really seriously start losing weight. So December, it was basically the beginning of December of 2018, when I started doing this. And since December 2018, I kind of kept up with it. And now I've gone off keto, and I've been trying to, do a more normal diet with carbohydrates. And so that version of cooking started in like September, October of 2019. And like, once again, kind of just like keeping up with it. It really served a lot of functions, by the way. Like, it wasn't just, it allowed me to calorie count I weigh my portions. So I do all like the macros and everything. So it allowed me to know exactly what I was doing. And it was amazing because like I could actually, before I stepped on the scale every week, go, okay, according to my food diary, I had this much, I'm in a deficit this much. You lose, this much fat when you, have this calorie deficit. And literally I could actually guess my weight before I stepped on the scale and it would be that way, which is very like gratifying to see when you're doing all the numbers and you see it work that way. So it really, and then also not to get a little depressing here. Like life's great, but like, especially back then, like, being in Seattle and being an import, I like to say in Seattle, I was very, I didn't have any friends outside of work. And the weight I was at back until, basically a year ago, I, didn't really like going out at all. I didn't like being around. I didn't like being in public. I hated being in public. I hated being in restaurants. I hated eating out. I would be alone, and I was a hermit in my apartment for years. So I didn't really, I still, I only recently started having a social life somewhat. And even then now, because of the situation, it hasn't really happened.
Yeah.
Cooking became meditative in a way for me, where I could take time, review a recipe, kind of prep for it. And it became this practice, which also ate up a fair amount of time, especially the cooking and the cleaning afterwards, and kind of the documentation of it. It became this kind of meditative habit for me as well, which allowed me then to feel like I am connecting with people still, and I am, kind of interacting with people. And so it served a lot of functions. And then what I didn't realize later until I started dating again this year was women apparently really like it. Like I've found out through like, my journeys now that a lot of people, when I did, some dating online through, shout out to Bumble. But through dating online, I found out a lot of girls, the moment I started talking about like the cooking I was doing, I got a lot of people interested in what I was cooking. And then the photos I provided them, which were the same photos I provided on Facebook, got a lot of response. And so like even my current, Vanessa told me that, I'm in Seattle. So sorry if you heard the motorcycle just then.
Listen, I want to let you finish your thought, but this has been great. I've been doing these episodes remotely. And so, it's, as far as the audio quality, I don't have someone across from me speaking into one of my Shure mics in the same room, so it sounds, yep. I know these episodes sound different. I think I've been very happy with what we've been able to achieve with the sound quality of the remote recordings. But for you in particular, because you have this whole gaming setup, so you're in your gaming chair, which I have a gaming chair as well, even though I don't game, but it's super comfortable. And you have a microphone and your headphones. Like, believe me, I can deal with something passing by your window. That's quite all right. This sounds great.
Awesome. Glad to hear. But yeah, essentially, even Vanessa, she said that like one of the things that had her interested in me in the beginning was like all the cooking that I was doing. Of course, the joke's on them because no one knows if it tastes good. It could look good, but yeah, no, so it served a lot of functions, but for me, it was kind of almost it was bred out of necessity in the beginning, but now like even with everything and the weight I've lost, which was its own journey, like. It's now just actually something I really just enjoy doing. And it is still meditative, once again, with all the circumstances of today. It even more so is, just, it's still the same thing it was before then too, except I'm just constantly honing it. And I'm one of those perfectionists. So I like to be able to constantly improve and show improvement and try to wow people. I just hope that once I get to hopefully cook if I could, come back to New York and cook for you guys again, and hopefully it tastes good.
Oh man, I would love it. And I love all of that. And I'm proud. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished and the cooking, it's very inspiring to me. Obviously not enough to get me to do it yet, but I think, though honestly, it is something that's more on my mind, and especially now, as my son gets older, although even now this kid eats everything. So I really should be starting this now, but especially as he gets older, like I want there to be things, even if it's just like pancakes on Sundays. Like I want it to be something that like daddy makes this and I like it. Cause again, my wife is a wonderful cook and she really handles all of that, but, and I know she would appreciate having, having some help. Cause that is one area, I think the only area where I really don't pull my weight. Again, I like to think we make up for it, with the other chores and everything, but,
I got a good chili recipe for you.
Is it Odo's recipe?
It's not Odo's recipe, but it's actually the same chili recipe I cooked for you guys, when you came to my parents' house.
Oh, nice.
Years ago. It's the same. It's the same, like 4 to 8 hour slow cook Texas style chili with stew meat and pork loin. And it's, I cooked it I actually posted pictures of it on Facebook, but I cooked it like a couple months ago too. It's great. Once again, with chili, it's hard to go wrong. And yeah, no, I can give you that too. Like, having a good chili, that once again, all you have to do is kind of baby it over the hours, and have it kind of just slow cook and simmer. I think that could help too. In
the comics, Oliver Queen, has a famous chili that he makes. And I think in some comic over the years, DC published the recipe. You should give that a try.
Yeah, totally. Once again, chili in its very nature is not a difficult dish in terms of like just, you throw a bunch of things in the pot and you let it cook for a bit. So yeah, that's definitely something you should give a go as well. Yeah. I definitely didn't have any cooking chops back then.
It's all relative. I
was able to cook it.
It's funny though. It's all relative. Where you're like, oh, it's pretty easy. It's like to me where I'm really incompetent when it comes to that. It's like, oh, that it would be challenging enough. Meanwhile, if you say like, oh, how do you start a podcast? I'd be like, oh, no big deal. So, it's all relative, but yeah, I might hit you up for some recipes, at some point, but, no, I love what you're doing. And I don't know, we might have to do another episode at some point about, the whole fitness journey, if that's something you want to talk about.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Do you mind? And if you don't want to put a number on it, that's fine. But just so listeners have a sense of the transformation that we're talking about, like when you came to visit a couple years ago and we did that New Year's special, from then to now, just in terms of the number of pounds, like what are we talking here?
So I was about 360 when I saw you guys. And I honestly didn't lose any weight until, literally like a year later. When I first stepped on the scale again, I had already started losing weight. So I didn't actually record like the first time I started, I had already started dieting. So when I first stepped on the scale though, so I think I was 360 before I ever stepped on the scale. And that's when I saw you guys, I was about 360. And then December 7th, 2018, I was 353. And then this September, I think 23rd of 2019. So about 10 months, I guess. I went from 353 to 196.
It's amazing. I mean, that's, I hope people logged those numbers. I mean, that's that's incredible. And it's so great to see that. And, cause I know when we saw you, that previous time, and I know we took a photo of us together, and I know even taking a photo was something that, you weren't super comfortable with. And so, to see you get to this point, it was just wonderful. Again, I'm very, very proud.
I still look at that photo, every now and then. And, because it really was, that was pretty much the way I was at before I started the journey. And the only reason I took that photo was because if I was with anyone else, I wouldn't have done it. But I wanted to kind of just record the event of me being with you guys, because you guys mean a lot to me. So, but it now serves a completely different purpose aside from marking that event. It also just kind of reminds me of where I came. Yeah, I'm more than happy, by the way, in the future to do a fitness thing, because it really is a numbers game. I found, and I was doing lifting as well as a lot of running and cardio. Ran a half marathon on Saturday, and kickboxing also back when you could do kickboxing. And it was definitely something that what I've told my friends is like, if I could do it, anyone could do it. And so happy to always kind of document that, because I logged every single thing I ate for 9 months. And so it's a numbers game at the end of the day. But yeah, no, thank you. It really means a lot. And I really do feel like it's one of those few things where I can actually really like pat myself on the back truly and be like, yeah, no, I did something pretty cool.
Yeah, you should be very proud. And I appreciate that you took that photo with us. And I'm glad we have it. I'm glad you have it. And you basically have a before and after, because the four of us then took a photo last year at the pizza place. So the same group of people.
Yeah. And yeah, no, it's, yeah. I'm glad that, yeah, we took that photo then too. But yeah, no, it's been an amazing journey. And I hope now that I'm probably the best version of myself that I've been ever, to be honest. I really hope I can hang out with you guys soon and get over there, first of all, of course, see my nephew first, but shortly thereafter, hang out with you guys again at some point, because, I miss everyone. And I'd like to, be able to see everyone again, especially now that I'm feeling a lot better about myself. I think I'll definitely be more fun to be around, because I'm out of my head a little bit too.
Well, I look forward to the next time that we can all be together and reminisce and catch up and hopefully maybe even make some new memories as well. But really, thank you so much for doing this. I really enjoyed this a lot. I'm glad that we were able to do this. So listen, I hope you stay well, stay safe, stay healthy, keep up the great work and the great cooking. I hope that the lady enjoys the documentaries. Hopefully all goes well. I think it will. I think you come off well in the documentary. I don't think there's anything that, you would need to worry about.
No. No, I think, no, I agree. I think I come off all right. But yeah, no, thanks for having, I'm really glad we got to do this. I'm really glad that, this was a nice, as you said, like a kind of like a forcing function, to do something that, we always enjoy when we do.
Yes.
And so I'm glad that we got to catch up a little bit. And yeah, I hope to catch up with you guys more, especially in person in the future too. But yeah, let me know if you ever want to talk about other stuff too. More than happy to talk about the fitness stuff.
Awesome.
But yeah, no, thanks again. And yeah, I hope you as well stay safe, stay healthy. I hope your family does the same. And yeah, I look forward to seeing more of those posts about you and your son and your family overall.
Oh, thank you. Nick Robison, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to another installment of the LongAR Halloween. Next month, I'm celebrating Christmas with the spirit of friendship and fun himself, Rich Roney. It's going to be a very special episode. I hope you tune in. Also out today is a new installment of Digging for Kryptonite, a Superman fan journey, and the conclusion to the 4-part Patreon exclusive miniseries, the Flat Squirrel Fat Moose Team Up Hour with Sean Hendricks. So it's a big day. I hope you enjoy. Again, thank you as always for tuning in. And remember, don't be a flat squirrel. My Comic Shop History is a Flat Squirrel production. Art by Philtastic Phil Menza, music by Basic Printer. If you like what you heard, be sure to listen to Digging for Kryptonite, available on most major podcast platforms. Sign up for exclusive content at patreon.com/Anthony Desiato and watch My Comic Shop Country, out now on Apple TV and Amazon.